Ever wish you could go back and give advice to your younger self? Well, I bet most of you have. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 things I wish I had known before pursuing a software development career. Coming up. Welcome back, everybody. It's your boy Sam from Keep On Coding, the channel where we talk everything tech. So if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. But let's just jump right into it. The first thing is that the industry is not like those day in the life videos. When I was considering getting into software development, I really had no idea what to expect. And I really wanted to know what it would be like when I started working before I went down that path. And what better way to see that than to see actual footage of what a typical day is like. Now, these are probably the most viewed videos when it comes to software development. So if you are a small YouTuber, that's a great way to get some exposure. And these videos get like millions of views. So I think one of them I saw had like 4 million, a couple other had a few million views. But these videos are really just for that. They're mostly to get views. They're meant to be flashy. But realistically, you're not going to be eating food all day. You're not going to be going on hikes every day. You're not going to be playing volleyball all the time or whatever is in those videos. Now, there might be some companies like that, but not any that I've worked for. Now, if I ever made a day in the life video, it would start out with my hour-long commute, waiting in the cold for the bus to come, and then getting on BART, which were stuffed in there basically like sardines. And then finally I get into the office, I just go straight to my desk and pretty much sit there for like 6 to 7 hours. The other hour or 2 of my day is probably going to be sitting in meetings, or I'll have like 30 minutes to go get lunch. But it would honestly be pretty boring, so that's why I don't make those kinds of videos. But you know, I'm not really trying to be a downer here. Software development is a very rewarding career, but I just don't think it's going to be all fun and games. At the end of the day, they are paying you a lot of money to do work that a lot of other people can't do. And on the other spectrum of these videos, I see people staying in the office till like 7 or 8 p.m. and they got in at like 8. That's 12 hours of your day. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not staying in the office that late. You know, you have me for the 8 hours and then I'm going to peace out. There needs to either be like a production issue or a hard deadline for me to have to stay in, but that's the only reason I'm going to stay late. The second piece of advice I would give myself is starting out with a different programming language. Now, programming languages are a lot like real languages. The first language you learn and get really good at is kind of like your native language. Now, for me, my native language is English, but if I try to learn any second or third language, no matter how hard I try, it won't ever be as good as English. The first programming language I learned was C++, but the first one I got really good at was Java. And now I'm pretty much married to it and I can't get divorced. It's pretty much like the worst kind of marriage. And the main reason I would change languages is because of interviews. Java is a very verbose language. Just to get a program up and running, you have to write a lot of boilerplate code. And if I could go back and redo it, I would have started out learning Python, because there have actually been studies shown that you are more likely to get a job if you interview in Python versus Java. Because in most interviews that you do, you can choose the programming language that you interview in. And say there's 2 candidates, one interviews in Java, one interviews in Python, and the person in Python is able to finish their problem a lot faster because it's less verbose. Well, the interviewers aren't going to care what language you interviewed in, unless it's like a specific job for Java. They're just going to say, okay, this guy coded it in a lot faster, let's give him the job. Now, a lot of you guys that know Python might just say, hey, we're just smarter than Java developers, but I really think that it is because of the reasons I just stated. I haven't had a friend who strictly picked up Python so he could interview better. And after he switched to Python, he was able to get a job at Amazon. So obviously it helped him. I tried to go that route to learn Python as like an interview language, but I never really just felt as comfortable as I did with Java. So I pretty much just had to bite the bullet and interview in Java. Now, before we get into number 3, I have the question of the day. And that is, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self getting into software development? Let me know in the comments down below. So let's get into number 3, and that is that you don't need a computer science degree. Now, it definitely does help, but there is this myth that you need a degree in computer science in order to be a successful software developer. But this bias is starting to go away. Google and Apple dropped their no degree policy because they realized how many potential good developers that they were missing out on. And I think most likely they had this hard requirement because those companies get so many applicants, they need any excuse to weed people out. And interviewing candidates costs companies money, so it's really a safer pick for them to pick someone who already has some kind of proven track record, because they think that they're more likely to eventually get a job offer. But there are a lot of solid developers getting hired by companies like Uber who don't have this hard requirement. For example, I knew someone who didn't have a degree or anything. They did a 3-month boot camp and they got a full-time offer from Uber as a software developer. I also have coworkers. A lot of my coworkers don't have a degree, but they have like 10 plus years of experience. So if you ask me whether I can tell or not they went to school for a degree, I wouldn't be able to tell you because they have so much experience that it's kind of like that difference has faded away. And most people that preach that you don't need a degree are people that don't have degrees. So in my opinion, that's pretty biased. But coming from someone who has a master's degree, I think it's pretty justified, and I do agree that you don't need one. So number 4 is only trying to work at a FAANG company. And I've been guilty of this as well, but I really think that you're limiting yourself here. At these large companies like Facebook or Google, you're really just like a gear in an entire system. And this is true at the individual level as well as the team level. For example, I had a friend who was at Google and they were like, hey, yeah, I work for the Google Docs team. And I was like, wow, that's really impressive. And they were like, well, my team is just in charge of the comment section in Google Docs. And if you ever use Google Docs, you can leave a comment on a specific section and on the right side, it will show the comments there. But I thought it was pretty crazy that they had a whole entire team dedicated just to that small feature of the entire application. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's a lot involved in implementing those comments, especially because it is an external facing feature. But for me, I'd rather work on more than just something like that. Like at my last company, we basically did everything from gathering the requirements, writing the code, testing, deployment. We were working on different web applications, so we're able to use different JavaScript frameworks. We built backend APIs using .NET as well as Node, and we did a lot of database work utilizing stored procedures as well as ORMs. And if you don't know, ORMs are basically a way for backend applications to talk to a database. And another thing I've heard is, hey, once you work at a company like Amazon, you can get a job anywhere. And that's not really true. Yeah, once you work at one of those companies, you can get an interview anywhere, but you still have to go through a rigorous interview process before you get a job offer. It's not like once they see that you have that on your resume, they're just gonna come at you with an offer. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't mistake this for me saying that you shouldn't work for one of these companies, because by all means, if you get an offer, you should probably take it, because first of all, these companies pay so high. And like I mentioned before, it will make things easier down the line, like getting interviews at other companies. But don't measure your successes and failures based on solely that. Like I've mentioned before, it's more important about the culture of the company that you're going to than the actual name. And last but not least, we have number 5, which is that you don't need to work or even go to school specifically in Silicon Valley. There are plenty of opportunities outside of the Bay Area. You know, there are large tech hubs now in Seattle, Austin, New York, and there are even smaller places that are less competitive to get jobs and quite frankly, a lot cheaper to live in. For example, before I got into grad school, I was taking all my computer science prerequisites at a university called Cal State East Bay. Now, most of you guys probably haven't even heard of it, but it is an ABET accredited school. It's part of the California State University system, and it is in the Bay Area. But you can't tell me that I have more opportunities going there than I would going to a school like UCLA or UC San Diego. And don't get me wrong, Cal State East Bay is a super underrated program. I learned all my CS fundamentals there, and I really credit a lot of my success as a developer to that school. But being an underrated school, they don't get much exposure. So I remember going to a career fair there once, and I hadn't even heard of any of the companies that were there. I think I've heard of Symantec, which was the biggest company there, but you go to a career fair at like UC San Diego, you're gonna get all the big companies. So your decision should be based more on either the school or the actual company you're going to than the location that you're at. All right, so those are the 5 things I wish I had known before getting into software development. As always, I want to thank you guys for making it to the end of the video. Make sure you smash that like button if you found this video helpful. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next video.